Good evening, everybody. My name is Melody McAllister, and I just want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. We've had a series of just how we can equip parents and families for productive remote learning. And last week, I had Dr. Chris and Sophia on, and we touched on about how virtual learning is an opportunity, how it gives us ways to teach things that are far from the arbitrary. And tonight we're going to go even deeper. We're going to talk about, of course, the opportunity, but we're also going to talk about a couple of, I just said opportunity.
Several times. It's okay.
Because
it's just so full of opportunity.
I didn't practice tonight. I didn't practice.
That's because we tossed you off the...
Yes, we did. We did.
Right.
Yes, they distracted me. However, remote learning, it provides a lot of opportunities, and we're going to talk about that. And thank you again, Dr. Chris Brownell and Sophia Stier, for being here tonight. You two are pros at this. So while remote learning and virtual learning is a new thing for a lot of us, it's not new for you two.
Correct.
But before we get into that, I want to introduce you really quick. Dr. Chris, will you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. I am a former high school math teacher turned math professor turned math education professor and author. I'm the co-author of Math Recess and a few other academic articles people might be interested in.
You academic? Just kidding.
Just a little too many. Too much. Sorry.
I'm teasing. And Sophia, oh my goodness, really Sophia, like.
Okay.
Sorry. Introduce her, will you?
Goodness, and while she's still collecting herself, I want to just say happy 60th birthday to our friend Dr. Chris. He had a birthday this last week. Happy birthday!
I'm a recent old man now.
Recent old man. Now you're officially the old math guy.
I am the old math guy.
Yes. All right.
OMG, that's me.
OMG, yes.
She may be LMG, but I am OMG.
That's the old math guy. That's what we will refer to you as.
Right. Oh my God. Right. Oh my God. It's hard to believe he's this old. Oh, okay.
Anyway, who am I? I'm Sophia Stier. I am the founder of Little Math Girl. You can find that everywhere. Twitter, except Facebook.
Everywhere but Facebook.
Twitter, Instagram, www. I am a math tutor. I tutor mainly virtually, and I tutor children and parents that are struggling more than in just the math class, but in life, get them back on track. What else do I do? I am working on a podcast and a book with Dr. Christopher. So hopefully we have more to talk about that soon. And I just recently started my studies at JKU, which is Johannes Kepler University in Linz. And
that's in Austria.
Congratulations.
Yes. And digging deeper into brown girls, mathematics, and STEAM, putting it all together. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's amazing. And I have been saying your last name wrong. So I am so sorry. It's Stier. It's not Stier.
We never debate that because when people say Stier, they know how to spell it. But if you say Stier, I always tell people, take the S off, and then what do you have? If you say cheer, and I go, okay, put the S back on.
Yeah, education, yeah.
Yes.
Education speak tier anyway, because yes. Awesome. And so thank you all for joining, whether you're joining from Facebook Live, YouTube Live, or Twitter. During this whole time, please drop your questions because both of these phenomenal educators have experience in virtual learning. If you're an educator or you're a parent, we are here for you. We're here to equip families. And so we're going to get started on why to choose virtual learning, but just definitely drop your questions and comments. But why should people choose virtual learning?
Well, I mean, right now, there's lots of reasons, health reasons to choose virtual learning, right? Social distancing is really critical. And in some places, it's also not actually a choice. In my part of the world, Central California, that's the state regulation. We are a declared hotspot, and so virtual learning is what you will do. So, but there's also some other real strong positives to making that choice. If you have the opportunity to take that choice, you can there's flexibility, there's opportunities for more authentic learning. You can extend your time, you can allow for creative use of that time. There's all sorts of actual benefits to learning in a virtual setting.
Yes.
So.
Yes, absolutely. Where I'm at in Pennsylvania, virtual schools are part of normal schooling when school is normal. There is brick and mortar, there are private schools, and there are lots of virtual learning schools here. And each one is just as different as any regular school. So just like any other school, you got to look at them pretty closely. The benefits that for me and for my kids were that they got to choose, and it's very flexible. So I had boys that were doing work on, if they were in 4th grade, some classes were at 4th grade level, some classes were at 10th grade level, some were on the college level. They can do that, and they can also stay with their peers. That's the beauty of it. You can take a subject and here it is, and every kid can work that subject at their level. There's no need to place them somewhere else unless they need that or something like that. But then that flexibility that Christopher talks about, as I said in the last episode, my sons did a dual program. And what I mean by that is a sample schedule would be language arts, science, math, history, the computer electives, and then art, photography, scuba diving. And all this is all in the same schedule. The travel classes, the foreign language classes. And people say, how do they do that? Well, they double up their schedule, literally. And 3 days, they would do one set of classes, and the other 2, they would do the other set of classes. And while they're not in those other classes, those classes are still happening. Mm-hmm. So they have to have the tenacity to get the work done. They would literally work through weekends. Now, don't do that to your child unless that's what they want to do. And you constantly ask them, do you want to do that? And if they say yes, then hold them to it, and they will get it done like beautifully. My sons love their extra things so much, computers, advanced sciences, all kinds of things. They would literally sleep in the car. By the way, we did a hybrid. So they did get to meet their teachers and do things live with their teachers and go on trips and know their classmates. They had prom and all those other things, and they all know each other. So when people are like, how is that happening? Kids aren't social. Yes, they are. They get to do much more. And the difference between what's happening now and what my children got to do was, now you're still going district by district by district. Regular cyber schools are statewide. So kids know each other from all over the states. Their teacher comes from all over, and they all come together at different things. They'll do gym, they'll meet at a state park kind of thing. They get to do a lot more. It's a lot more adventurous, and they get to do crazy things. They once had class at a drive-in movie theater. They all did class. There were just hundreds of cars. They all did class, and when it was done, they watched movies. So
wow,
so things like that.
So we've been seeing a lot of posts and things, people saying like that kids are getting, 6 hours or having to be on the screen for 6 hours. Is that what virtual learning looks like?
No, it does not actually. And it's what's happening right now. And hopefully as they, figure this out, they realize that is not how, that's not the best method. I'm not going to say that's how it shouldn't happen, but that's not the best method. There are synchronistic classes and asynchronistic classes. Can
you say what those mean? Because when we talk to families, they don't always use the jargon.
Okay, so there's live classes with your teacher and your classmates, and then there are classes that are pre-recorded or lessons that you just have to do, that you're responsible for getting done. And that works because when you're in class on Monday and you have a science lesson and an English lesson or whatever, that's not due on Monday. You can't do cyber school and have flexibility and have things due like every day at this time. It has to be done by the end of class kind of thing. They have to have that flexibility where it's like, this is the due date. So most cyber schools will have a 3-week period. Like, so there's marking periods, but there's 3 weeks. So every 3 weeks, X amount of work needs to be done. Now, there are guides and everything in place for them to follow. And it is recommended that they follow it. But if they can't, that's where their responsibility comes in, to get that work done. And so they're responsible to be at a synchronistic class, but those classes are recorded. If you can't be there, you need to have a reason why. You're in another program. Some students are athletes. We literally had like Olympic athletes and like dancers and world-class musicians in the school. They can't be at a live class. They have other things to do. So they're responsible for reaching out with their teacher and guidance and knowing that schedule. And then every 3 weeks, no matter what program you're in, whether you have 2 classes or 12 classes, all work is due by midnight then. And you have all these opportunities. You have office hours and things like that to reach out if you're having a problem. So you get that help sooner than later. And teachers are tracking that also. So if you're off by a week, someone is going to call you and say, hey, what's going on? Because that's a lot of work to make up. And that's the other thing in regular cyber school. People think like, oh, well, then you must not be doing as much. They do everything. If the textbook is getting done, the entire textbook is getting done. That book's getting read, it's getting written about, it's getting talked about, everything, because they have the time. A teacher can give you a homework lesson, you have to figure out how to fit it in. They don't have to say, okay, you have to have it done within this time slot. So when they give you that 24/7, you have much more time to go deeper and to do, I'm going to say, crazier things, because my boys turned like the video making into something that Martin Scorsese, was making a video of cooking an egg. It was like, cut, and it was just like, can we get this done? 3 hours later, we're still making a scrambled egg, but if you let them do that, they learn so much more. Like, they just get deeper and deeper and deeper. So by the time you got done, you knew like not only where eggs came from, but the science and the temperatures. And, they had warning signs up. If you're young, don't use this stuff. Crazy. But, and those things as parents will drive you crazy. There are times when you're just like, please just get it done. But just let them do at their pace, and they will get it done, and they will get above and beyond. But no, regular cyber school doesn't look like this. And right now, cyber school doesn't look like this for everyone because you can't move about, So that personal part that everyone was always afraid of about cyber school is happening by default right now. Under normal circumstances, that is not the case. Teachers are very creative in creating moments, and parents and families are very creative in getting the kids together and doing projects outside and making them teamwork and all kinds of things like that. They've used the mail. Don't forget to use your mail. And that's right. Don't forget to use the mail. Like, one child can start a project and then mail it off and pass it on to another student. Just make that project longer. And then by the time it gets to the teacher, it should be all done. It's a really cool thing to do.
Like, I want to go back to virtual learning. Like, I want to go back to school and do it all virtually. Right. That's how it makes, when you talk about it, it makes me want to do it, all of it. So
right. You just have to be all in. You just gotta, everybody has those days, and we had those days because you don't really have a snow day or a sick day or things like that. We would pick a day on the calendar. This day is no school for us, and we would just let the teachers know, but they had to get all their work done. So that was the deal. If everyone had their work done, then we could do that. So we had a couple of neighbors that also did it, and we would take that day, and then that would be the day. Like, okay, we're going to the park, we're going to the movies, but this is our day off, kind of thing.
That's
so
cool.
You do have to fit those in. Yeah. You have to take it upon yourself. And that's kind of tough as parents sometimes, because you're like, no, it's school. It's school time. Take a break. Know when your kid needs a break, and then say, you know what? We're taking a break. This is going to be a long weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
Chris, I know you want to say something.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's she gets on a roll. It's tough to rein her. Whoa.
You just have to stop me. You know how to.
So she's super excited about this. I want to point out something. I mentioned earlier, I'm a little bit on the academic side, so I do some research in education, and I wrote about this in the Math Recess book a little bit. Finland is a nation whose educational system has been touted worldwide, yes, based on results they get in all sorts of comparative assessments, comparative tests. test for is the worst word possible, but it is sort of a meaningful word in that situation. But Finland has for the last 2 decades been near or at the top of a lot of these assessments. And I went there and I did some research and I studied the education system and I interviewed some teachers and I've read a lot about the education system. And if when people ask me, so what is it that's special about the Finnish system that makes it so? If I try to wrap it up in one word, it's the word autonomy. And one of the things that virtual learning gives us, or can give us, when schools will embrace it, when school systems will embrace it, when school districts and teachers will embrace the idea, is that we give back to the children, to the students, to the parents, to the teachers, a sense of autonomy, of self-determination over your learning and your objectives and your goals for learning. It allows for a completely different perspective on things. A book I would recommend people. Another book I would recommend people read, besides my own, of course, is one by a guy named Francis Su, Mathematics for Human Flourishing. Now, I love that title and I love the book, but the title is great because so many people think of mathematics not about encouraging the flourishing of humanity, but it really is. And virtual learning can bring that opportunity for people to genuinely flourish within school, rather than seek to comply and always check off this box and that standard. I taught standard N.1, 0.2 today, and they're covered the curriculum.
We're not trying to make people mad. Okay, so. But I see what you're saying, and I want to say Alice is watching, and she's watching. So I can't pull up her comment, but it says she loves hearing how virtual school works really well when done right, not just forcing kids on screens for hours at a time. So I thank you for talking about that. And Tim said hi. I want to say hi to Tim, who's watching out there too.
Hi, Tim.
And,
yeah, see you.
And something that you both started talking about was emotional check-ins or check-ins, and you alluded to this also, Sophia, when you were talking about like making sure that your sons were on the right track, getting their work done. And what does this look like for parents and teachers?
Everyone knows their child. And of course, at every stage, it's different. And, talking with people right now, you'll hear, well, elementary students trying to get them in the seat and trying to get them to pay attention and so forth. But everybody has their own issue at different stages. Emotional check-ins is really asking your student, sitting down, asking your student how they're feeling. Like, give me a word, give me 3 words that tell me how you're feeling right now, what you're thinking right now. And as a parent also, taking a moment to write down what you're seeing, how they're feeling, how they're reacting, things like that. And the teacher does that too. But right now, being virtual, they won't see your child as much as you do. So it's important for parents to track that. One thing that I used to do was on their lessons about once a week, on that lesson where it's just kind of like, they're supposed to give a paragraph, but they gave 3 sentences, and they were kind of like, that's enough. What were they feeling? Were they tired, or were they having trouble with the assignment? Things like that, So, or were they just being lazy? I would write that too, right? Don't write that. It's like, no, that's what you're being right now. The teacher needs to know. You know what? He's being lazy right now. But it gave everybody a good insight. And the thing was, I would really make sure to pay attention to what they said about how they were feeling, because as I was saying to Chris the other day about this, is that what we want to make sure of, I actually wrote it down, is that we don't label them. Like, don't take our label, like what we've written down as parents, and teachers make a label, then we put it together, and then we try to create the kid that we just labeled, as opposed to allowing them to become themselves. That's what we're supposed
Oh
to be
my
doing, supporting
gosh.
them to be themselves, not
I'm gonna
making
drop
them
my
into what we want,
Sharpie.
right?
I'm gonna
Right?
drop that again. Can
That
you
is
repeat that?
that is super important, like, you know, that we listen
Yes.
to them, exactly, so that we don't take what we want and label them and try to create that. And that's usually what happens, you know. So like a good example is like, you know, when kids are older and they're about to go out the house and you're thinking, oh God, like, please don't let them dye their hair pink, please don't let them come back with the earring, please don't let all the things that you knew they would do, but you just didn't let them because you're making them into what you want them to be, not what they are, right? So you know they're coming back that way, right? So if you would just allow them to be themselves, you know, when they come back, you won't be so shocked because
Right.
you've allowed them to become the person that, you know, it's like we're not trying to, you know, create clones of ourselves. We're trying to let them be who they are.
Right.
And that takes a lot. Trust me, they're, you know, it sounds, you know, I don't want people to think like, oh yeah, you know, that sounds all great. Trust me, not easy at all. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, I would always say to my children, and it's, you know, my friends would say, that's a crazy thing to say. And I was like, no, it's a true thing to say. If I died tomorrow, what would you want to do? What would you want to be? Be honest.
Like if you weren't standing in
If
their
I
way.
weren't here, if I weren't, exactly, because that could happen. If I'm not here, like, I don't want you to all of a sudden stand there and think like, wow, this isn't me, this is mom. Like, I want them to be who they are, you know, and it's for me to deal with, like, you know, it's not their job to deal with what we want them to be. It's our job to deal with what they want to be. Our
Gosh,
job is to keep them
just
out of
went into
trouble,
a complete different
out of
direction.
trouble and safe while they're getting there,
Yeah.
right? That's it. We're supposed to nurture them, keep them out of trouble, keep them safe, but not twist them. They're not a science project, right?
What you're saying though, like, really goes well with however you're schooling your children.
Exactly. Right.
That is something that should be foundational, but what it's not, you know, and I'm a parent, Chris is a parent, like those are things that are like hardcore, hard to put into practice.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I am just as guilty of doing it at times, but I have a younger son who would say to me, I would say, you know, I'm very angry with you, this and that. And then he says, Mom, I didn't make you angry. You chose to be angry. Those are my words coming back at me. So,
right.
You know, so it's like, oh, okay, right. So getting schooled by my son, right?
But you did make him into you.
Yes.
I want to say something else about emotional check-ins. As for parents, teachers are getting a lot of training and there's a lot of professional development out there right now in what teachers are calling SEL, social and emotional learning.
Huh.
And you're going to see teachers implementing those sorts of techniques, those sorts of questions, and they're going to be trying to do to help your students connect with their own emotional needs and connect socially with people in these virtual settings. And so be prepared that sometimes what you're going to see, because your child's classroom is now in your house, you're going to see some things that you probably aren't accustomed to seeing, and it may not have been part of your experience as a student when you were in the K-12 world, but there's some decent research, decent learning and thinking that's gone into a lot of the training that teachers are getting about the ideas of social and emotional learning. And you might hear people talking about trauma-informed learning and that sort of thing. These are not terrible. They have some very important basis in what we know about how people are processing this time, and what researchers have come to understand about how humans get through these weird and strange situations like this. So
Definitely
be prepared to see that, and be prepared to support your child's teacher as they try to help your child get in contact with the things that are the strong emotions that may be welling up within them because they can't physically touch their friends, and they can't actually run around on the playground and do that sort of thing. So
Right.
I know. And you know, what you're saying, Dr. Chris, is so real because, you know, my family, we were actually planning on returning to the public school room this year. I wanted to go back in the classroom. My kids were looking forward to making school friends. And so, you know, my younger kids have neighborhood friends, but my oldest daughter doesn't. And so, like, I'm seeing, and my husband and I are talking about this, like, we're seeing the effects of what it's like when kids don't have that emotional connection with other friends. And it is concerning. And luckily, we have the resources to help our kids through that, but it's not easy, you know,
no.
For anybody involved. And I love that teachers are also taking on that training. It's something that we didn't necessarily learn when we were going through school. Like, it's just a part of life, and we can't teach kids who are hurting and so lost in their hurt that they're not able to be there with us. Even if they're sitting there, you know, on the camera with us, they're not there in mind. And so it is good. And you're right. A lot of the things that we do today don't look like what all of us experienced in our public schooling. And
Right.
so, or whatever, you know, setting we were in. And it is helpful for us to have that open mindset as parents to embrace what our teachers are doing and to support them. And if we see something that doesn't make sense, to ask them. And then even to go so far as to say, teachers, if parents are saying what you're doing is making me feel uncomfortable, then to also respect that in response too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's the thing that we have to remember is, like, all right, when you have 20, 30 children in a classroom, the teacher has one classroom. Okay. When you have 20, 30 children online, the teacher has 20, 30 different environments, and they
Right.
can't control the environments. So it's really important on the other end that you set standards and protocols and things like that for guidelines for your children, because each one of those is different. The teacher has to try to create it like one unit, but there's 30 different environments happening. A gym class could have 50 or 60 cameras going at one time. That's a lot going on. And as a parent, you have to really take on that, you know what, it's about the unit, not just about your child. You really have to kind of embrace their classrooms also. It's not, okay, my child needs this. That one's being loud. Can you make that one shut up? Can you make...
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. Okay, you have to remember that if they were in a classroom, that's what's going on in their day.
Right.
And just like the rest of us, you learn to deal with what's going on around you. What's going on around you is not you. Like, and that's a hard thing for people to.
It is,
Yes.
but it's also a part of developing, like you were saying
Yes.
earlier, autonomy, you know,
Yes.
learning how to control yourself in the presence
Yes.
of others and
Yes.
making those, personal choices too, and support. I love what y'all are saying. And I think it's so important that we are doing emotional check-ins with our students and our children, our personal children. So it needs to be a part of how we are initiating our time with our students when we're live with them, and making sure that they're engaged, because we talked about last week about, do students always have to have their cameras on? Is that like necessary for success in virtual school? And you said it wasn't.
No.
And other professionals that have said they've been doing online teaching for a long time, the camera doesn't have to be on, but definitely emotional check-ins are, they have to be done.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
And, you know, and I was reminded of something. I, like many other people this summer, have been living in Zoom,
The Zoom world.
Yes.
Zoom world purgatory. Some people may call it hell. Others
You've
may.
been in the waiting room. You've been in the Zoom waiting room.
Right. And a friend of mine, Eddie Campos, you may have.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Eddie Campos.
Hi, Eddie.
Hey, I don't know if he's online, but Eddie, shout out to Eddie Campos. Eddie Campos puts on some of the best Zoom meetings I have ever been in. And one of the things he does, and and don't be shocked, parents, if you see your children doing these sorts of things, is he breaks things up. And after 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes of talk, he'll put on a song that everybody recognizes and say, turn on your camera, and everybody's going to dance. And you're
Right.
right. So if all of a sudden you hear, Taylor Swift in the background telling everybody to shake it off, and your kid's up dancing or doing some TikTok looking dance or Fortnite dance or something like that, don't be shocked. It's part of
those are the best
now
parts.
I'm singing it, shake it off. Now I just want to sing it. Oh, there we go.
just shake it off, folks, because it's
what a good theme song for this year.
Exactly.
Yes, shake it off, because it elevates the that sort of movement, that sort of physical engagement has positive impact on your outlook. And thanks, Eddie, for the great examples. If anybody's looking for more of them, I'd say look for Eddie Campos Jr. on Twitter, Instagram, wherever. He's just a great guy.
Don't be so serious about it. I've been watching all of these like introductions that teachers are doing, and they're great. They are great. I'm telling you, teachers are being really creative and everything, but just be yourself. Like teachers, you're walking into the same thing that you would at the beginning of any school year, and the part where it's like, well, how do I do this? The same thing you would say to them if you were standing in front of them. Say to them, just do what you're doing. If they have to get out pencil and paper, they're not like, oh no, why aren't you using this app? Why aren't you using this digital thing? And those things actually kind of make kids' lives a little more difficult when they're switching between apps and things, as opposed to if they just had a notebook in front of them. So just be yourself, because the thing is, you're not going to be able to keep up that energy and all of those things. So you're going to set them up for waiting for all of the fun stuff. And then you're just going to be like, okay, by December, you're like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. They're like, where's the video? Where's the, kind of thing. So
you got to shake it off.
Exactly.
Shake it off.
Just be you. Yeah.
That was so cool. Did you see Dr. Chris and I were like dancing synchronously? Yes. Did you see that? That was so cool. It was awesome. Well, you guys have done, I love that we've talked about like the emotional check-ins. And now the last thing that we're going to talk about is something that is a part of the opportunity of virtual learning that you guys are totally in love with, but the opportunity for digital portfolios, and people are already using these, are not new, but this is something that parents might not be quite as aware of, and you have some great things to share about it. Yeah,
so if you think about, let's say if you're an artist or an architect or, even an interior designer, and you go to, and you're trying to get a job with somebody, often you have a collection of photos of things you've created, and we call that a portfolio. In the old days, it was literally a large book. Sophia may talk about lookbook kind of ideas, but it would be a book of pictures. And if you're a photographer, it's this is the kind of work I've done. Look at this here. As a professor, I have to keep what's called a curriculum vitae, or a CV, and it's a listing of the papers and publications and so on. And as children come out of the K-12 world right now, almost exclusively what they have is a single sheet of paper for the last 4 years of school that says A in this class, C in that class, straight A's everywhere, or like me, straight C's in most of my classes, and the ones that weren't C's we won't talk about. But I was happy to get to C's most of the time. I was not the best of students in high school, but if we could help students to come out of school with more than just that, and the ability to say, oh, I was a C student in math, rather they could come through and say, look, here's a body of work I have made, I have created, and I have curated this body of work, and it's I've commented on it, and I've commented on how I've learned from it, and it all exists in a digital setting, maybe on a Google site, or fancy ones might be in a WordPress site. These things, Google sites are free, so that's the beauty of those. And many schools are adopting e-portfolio pieces to how they are assessing and providing evidence that each child is learning. And I think the opportunity of a digital portfolio is just that. You now have a collection of all the things, or the most important things you can think of, that you did over the course of your 13 years of schooling. Along with that, you could select. Here's the mathematics I started, in kindergarten. I was working on understanding shapes and and you could trace shape. Your growing knowledge of the concept of shape through 3rd grade and 5th grade and 8th grade and beyond, clear through to the place where you're, talking to mathematicians and they're talking about topology and the, rubber sheet shapes, and people who can take their pants off and turn them inside out while never taking them off their body, and that sort of thing. And I have a video of that.
Yeah.
If you'd like to see it. I do it.
Are you just trying to make sure we're still listening or something?
Yes, I wanted to be sure. It's got to be appropriately shocking to be once in a while to get you right back in the conversation.
So you're saying that, so some schools, I know that I grew up and I had to put a portfolio together, but my teachers kept, and it was not digital then. And I am aging myself, but it's true. We had a folder of our written work, but what you're saying is not only if schools are doing this, but students taking this upon themselves to find their best work or to show their growth, even if it's not their best, but just to show their growth. These are things that parents can be doing and helping their kids to curate.
Students are doing it now. Students, they're all over YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and those are all portfolios, digital portfolios. And they have taken things that they've learned and things that they do and combine them together. And they have this way. You actually have a way to look at them and see them beyond a textbook, beyond a test, in those mediums. Now, I take students, and because we learn math through art, things like that, and then they pull in all of their other art, whether they're a musician or a dancer, things like that, and they combine it. And in that book, it's theirs. It's their book. It's not my book. So they get to put in there what they want. I don't get to say, but it's their book, but they get to express themselves in there. And it has to be, that book particularly has to be about math in any artistic way they want. And it's
Are you saying math can be artistic?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just, a lot of people are just like, no. Okay. If anybody who's a musician, you just start with the rhythms and everything like that. Just start
are you saying math rhythms. Is fun?
Math is
beyond fun.
Beyond fun. Yes. And when it gets hard, when you can't figure it out, the challenge, that's when it's even more fun. If you know what the answer is,
who cares?
So what?
What's
Who
the
cares?
point?
Exactly. It's when you don't know that answer. That's when it gets fun. Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. That's the challenge. So yes, we put it all in there, and they get to see where they're at. They get to see their, where they want to go. They get to put out ideas that they have, like those what if questions that you can't get done in class. It goes in that book, and they get to express it their way. So you get to see it in their words, from their perspective, what they're seeing, what they're thinking. And then they also have a place to go back and reference to, because we all forget. Children forget very quickly. That's why we do the whole spiral thing. Because they forget. Right. So it's like they get to go back, and they've created this book. So it's their most important things. And they get to put in there, when they did really well on the test. But for me, it's not so much, okay, you got an A on the test. Tell me why you got the A on the test. Show me why you got that A on the test. And then then you get more to it than that. And then I have them do what's called an elements page. And basically, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? What goal do you have? Write that down. What does it take to get there? And each thing that it takes is an element. So then you have to build your elements in order to become that. So that's their goal. Work on your elements, because this is what you need, your foundations, in order to make that thing happen. Okay, it's just like any compound we have. We need all the elements to put it together, or else we can't get it. We can want salt all we want. If we don't have sodium and chloride, we can't get salt. So
exactly.
And then they start to see things like that. But then they also start to break up things. It's not one thing. Like, first grader going, I have to graduate high school. Great. Right? And it's like, okay, what do you have to do that? You got a lot of steps. So they break it down, and then it's manageable. They can see that it's manageable. Anything is manageable. But then you, as the person looking at it, get to see their life beyond the page, so they can add videos to it, links, all kinds of things, drawings. Everybody is like, I'm not an artist. Everybody has some art skill in them. Everybody, even Christopher.
Heck yeah.
Hey. I let my mind wander for a moment, and he sends the dig in.
So what you're saying is that the digital portfolio that you're talking about is basically like something that everything that a student wants to put in there. It's not necessarily dictated by a parent, and not necessarily dictated by a teacher. Things that they're feeling proud of, goals that they want to work for, YouTube videos, or TikTok, whatever that they feel like is showing their best and their growth and their pathway to success is part of their digital portfolio.
Right.
When your kids did it, what did they save it on?
We have paper files like this. Of course, they're artists. So, if I were to turn my camera around, there's tons of stuff here. They have digital files. They always kept their own separate files. My youngest one is just starting to do Instagram with art. But that's the other thing. Remember, you can lock, you can keep it private. You do not have to have a public file, because people think Google, they're like, oh, but I don't want my kid out there. Lock the file.
Right.
And wherever there's Post-it notes. My oldest one, there's still a push pin and marker board in his room that he will not let me erase, because some of his best work is on there. He's 22. Some of his best work is on there. He hasn't been home in years.
That's cool.
I can't erase that, because, he's like, okay, I'm not over that yet. So they start to do it. In the beginning, they're like, After a while, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, I have to write that down. And then as creatives, myself and my other son, as creatives, this is just, this is a reference book. You get to go in there. It's easier for me to explain myself to you if you were to look through one of my books than if I were talking to you. If I were talking to you, you think like, who does she think she is? Like Leonardo da Vinci? Like, what doesn't she do? If you look through my book and listen to my music and then you go, oh, okay. And then you start to figure out who I am better. People don't get hired just because of a letter grade. You don't move on to another school just because of a letter grade. It should be more than that. You should come with more to the table and put in there your problems too, your weak points. What are you working on? What still don't you know? Things like that. Put it in there. You don't have to be Superman. Everyone thinks like, oh, have to be No, you don't.
No. But
if we were all perfect, we'd have nothing to do.
Yeah, you're very true.
Right?
To put it in the context of digital, though, digital portfolios can be stored in lots of places for really inexpensive. Or zero cost. You can create a Google site and not make it public if you don't want to, mm-hmm. and fill up your Google Drive, all 15 gigabytes of storage, right? Just for this one e-portfolio that's
right. With Google, you can blog, you can video, and blog, video. Yeah, you can do everything.
Writing, pictures of digital, and the beauty of going to of living in a virtual, going to virtual classes and distance learning, that we're doing right now, is everything you're doing has to be somehow communicated digitally already. So you will have all these files and artifacts that you've created that you can now link into these portfolios. And the time will come. I've been working in universities now for 20 years, and the time is coming where more university admissions is going to be dependent upon that sort of submission than SATs and ACTs, which are really rapidly going away.
Right.
And
Agreed.
I hate to break that news to the College Board and to the ACT, but you are rapidly becoming anachronistic. And
thank you, God.
Yes,
it is a ridiculousness to weigh someone's future life on one exam. Yes, it's a ridiculousness. One thing that teachers can do, parents can do in a virtual world that is really fun is pen pal, virtual pen pal with another classroom,
Yes.
especially foreign classroom, somewhere in Europe or something like that. You can do exchange trips now because you are virtual, and learn what it's like to be in class in Africa or China or something like that, which is really cool. So look out for things like that because those are fun, and the students learn a lot from each other.
That is so cool. Well, we're actually wrapping up. I don't know if you guys realize how long we've been talking. We've been talking a long time.
Yeah, we do that.
Yeah, this started.
But I know I have so much fun with both of you. Here's the thing that I love about our time together tonight is that virtual learning is so much more personal. And those teachers who actually choose to do virtual learning, like they've been doing it for years, they have found ways to really engage with their students and make it an experience that a student will still want to carry on, even when they're not like on the camera. They're going to be at home and they're going to be studying and they're going to be learning all they can about something. And that's what I love that you guys have talked about. And I love that we talked about student autonomy because we want that so badly for our kids, but sometimes we don't know how to put that into action. And so I think that we really talked about that well tonight. I definitely think we could go deeper into that, but that is like a whole session in itself. And but we've talked about a lot of great things tonight. Like virtual learning is great. Dr. Chris said this last week. Just knowing that it is an option and that people have been doing it for a long time is something that helps us to get away from the fear of it. And there are going to be teachers that are doing it for the first time that probably will fall in love with it and want to do more of that. So there's always that. The emotional check-ins, we spent a lot of time on that tonight. As parents and as educators, we need to be talking with our students and making sure that we know what's going on with their lives. That's way more important than making sure that they're in their uniforms or that their Zoom cameras are on, is checking in with them and holding office hours, being able to meet parents when or students when they need extra help or they just need some clarity. These are all good things that make virtual schooling amazing. And then, of course, the digital portfolios, another opportunity. And just, even if the ACT and SATs weren't going obsolete, how much do we have to show our work? We have to prove our work all the time to keep our certifications up. So this is something that isn't going to be going away and definitely is going to build our student autonomy and the desire, the intrinsic value of setting goals and looking at our growth and reflecting on that. So we got really heavy and deep tonight.
Yeah, we did. Sorry.
We did.
Yeah, when you summarize it. Well, the biggest thing is that people, it's like, embrace virtual learning. Don't think of virtual learning during a pandemic.
Right.
Right. It's like, look at what's at task, learning. And, deal with the situations of the pandemic as they hit you, as they come your way. But, don't put that in the middle of your learning.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm hopeful that we'll come out of this even better for it. There's all of us are feeling it like even more than we were a few months ago. We're
Absolutely.
so sick of this pandemic.
Yes.
It can just go to know where.
Yes. Yeah, we can't wait to get outside again. Yeah. We can't wait to see people again right now. Yeah.
Yes, for
crazy.
real.
Yeah.
But I mean, any last words? Because I do want to respect everybody's time, but I want to say thank you both for joining me again tonight. And I look forward to another time that we collaborate. I'm sure there's going to be more times. I'll be begging you guys. Let me play along too.
You bet.
Just go with it. Don't stress, don't chase the grades. Chase, go for learning, quality of learning. Grades come and go. And Dr. Chris there is proof positive that your grades do not define you for the rest of your life.
They don't have
So
to.
true.
And
I don't know why I'm picking on him today.
she's not just taking an opportunity to give me grief. She's actually speaking the truth. It's hard to believe.
Yes.
Dr. Chris, what turned you around? What made you decide to care more about learning?
The truth of the matter is I always liked learning. I just never liked school. And I liked...
Dang. Another Sharpie drop.
Yeah. I love learning. I love learning, but school never did it for me. I was the kid who wriggled in his chair until, 12th grade. I couldn't sit still inside in one of those cramped little attached to a wooden cage desk all day long with barely an opportunity, 5 minutes to run across campus, and all that stuff was just miserable for me. But I loved learning, and so once I was able to direct most of my learning myself, I did fine.
You were a perfect candidate for virtual learning, years ago.
Oh yeah. My favorite year of school was the year that my father, who was a university professor, went on sabbatical and took me to Australia. And I attended school there, but I didn't have any reason that I had to be there. I only did it because it was an opportunity to interact with people and find out how other school systems worked. And I didn't earn grades and take credits back. So I think I was a pain in the headmaster's backside, but I had a grand time. I learned more in that 1 year of high school than I did in the 3.5 years I spent in my home school back here in the States.
Yikes.
Because I was playing. I was having fun.
Yeah.
Matthew said, playful learning in an age of disruption. The subtitle.
There you go.
We are way over time. I've talked to
We are, but check out at Little Math Girl.
Yes.
Follow Sophia, follow Chris at C Brownell Math. These are two people that you want to follow. They get it. They love learning, and they also are totally nerded out with math stuff, if that's what you like. But y'all, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you for everybody watching, whether it's live or whether it's after, we terminated this live. We just really appreciate it. And we'll see you again next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.